Part 5. So I noticed that nobody's actually been watching this process, which is too bad because I've shared the whole nitty-gritty process of building this bridge from like a realization that I have a shadow, the shadow being poked up in me, and then, I have the knowledge that everything's forgivable, that I don't need to hold a grudge, right? So I'm building the bridge actively through all these parts that I'm sharing. And this is part of building the bridge for me. So what I've been doing since part 4 is letting myself feel the stuff, right? So what I uncovered, in case you didn't see the other parts, is that I had a shadow where I had a judgment held against people who abuse their authority. And because of it, I wouldn't let myself step into my own authority on certain topics without feeling like that was not okay. And it was because I didn't want to be, that kind of authority on anything. I didn't want to be a leader that is kind of like a tyrant. I didn't want to be a boss that is a jerk. But as a result, when you keep something in your shadow and you deny it, it's there, it sneaks out, and usually in the most damaging ways. So as a result of me having that judgment and in my shadow of my own ability to be an authority on something, it would sneak out. My authoritarianness would sneak out in ways that were unbecoming. And so great, it's out in the open now, it's not in the shadow. Intellectually, I understand that the reason why authority figures are abusive of their power is rooted in an insecurity, is rooted in an abuse of themselves, and is oftentimes this need for power because that's what they feel is the currency of life, or this need for protecting themselves, so it's like a front. Various different boo-boos can be associated with the act of abusing your authority. And so intellectually I understand it. It's out of my shadow, and now I'm in the process of building the bridge. And so what that has entailed is me allowing myself to feel, first of all, anger at this happening to me, to my family members, to people I love. And then the feeling of powerlessness, right? And if you watched my part 1, which wasn't labeled part 1, it was labeled Reprioritizing My Role in the Face of War. If you watched that, you know that I was describing a situation where two parties activated each other, and I was sort of on the side as the referee from my perspective at that time. And I just lost my thought. And what I was saying was that I didn't... Ooh. Will it come back? Oof. That's what happens with this stuff, right? So when this energy is activated, right, it's hard to see through it. And so oh yeah, well, in that video I was saying that, I had tried to activate the healing process with these parties who were in a trigger, and I couldn't. And then I started to feel powerless to the situation because I didn't know what else to do. Instead of stepping into my growth mindset, knowing that there is a solution. What is it? And so you'll notice that what I'm talking about today is that correlation to powerlessness having to do with an abuse of authority. Because people who feel powerless are the ones who want to take the power, right? Because if you already are resting in your own power, you don't have to take anyone else's. Okay, so because this was in my shadow, it wasn't, it wasn't allowing me to behave in a way that aligns with my values, what's important to me. So that's why I'm trudging it up. And then as I build the bridge, what I'm having to do is feel all the feelings, like powerlessness, like feeling powerless to authorities who are abusive, right? And it's just a feeling that I'm being present with. It doesn't mean I'm actually powerless. It just is a feeling that as a child, when I was in these circumstances, this feeling got lodged in me. And that's where the judgment came from, because I didn't like that. I didn't like them. And in some cases feel angered and enraged by them, right? Because when someone's taking your power, it's normal to kind of get into that place where you want it back, and that can come out as rage. So I'm not letting myself act on any of these things. I'm letting myself be present with all the ways to feel about this, including anger for people who have been abusive to me and my family, while being in the positions of authority. And the thing is, when I have this judgment, when I have this as a shadow in me, it attracts a lot more experiences like that. So I've had plenty of experiences to show me that this energy is in me. And now that I'm aware that it is the energy in me that's creating that experience for me, I'll be able to alleviate that situation for me once this is bridged and once I've balanced out the energy, right, between both sides. And I'm doing that by just processing the emotion. So I actually had plans to go out today, and I was just about to get in the shower and start my day, and then I just realized, you know what, I really don't want to. I just kind of don't want to. And I think it's because that energy is kind of still processing through me, and I just kind of want to be by myself while I process it, you know? Because, you know, tomorrow there'll be things for me to do, and I want to just be ready by then, you know, so I don't want to put it off today. So that's what I decided. That's why I'm a little bit unshowered looking, if you noticed. Maybe you didn't, because I always look like this. But I've just been letting myself process through emotion. That means, you know, crying sometimes. That means feeling angry sometimes. That means, you know, reliving the situation in my head a little bit sometimes to let the feelings come out. That means having a little argument in my head with whoever it was, or sticking up for myself in a scenario that I'm imagining. You know, all kinds of things are happening for me to balance out this energy, which is, you know, a real anger that I've had towards people who are abusing their authority. And at the same time, you know, intellectually I'm carrying an understanding for them, and a knowing that God loves them too, you know, that obviously if I'm capable of having moments of abuse of my authority, then, you know, and I'm loving myself through that, then the natural result is that I would love somebody else who also finds themselves subjected to that energy, you know, because I understand it, I have compassion for it, and I've loved myself and all the parts of me who indulged in those things. So my processing of emotion also includes remembering times that I may have done this and loving myself through that. And specifically after I processed and meditated on that first incident that started this uncovering of the shadow for me, really, with the two people in my life that got activated by each other and me being the referee, so to speak, I remembered that when I got them successfully apart so that they weren't at each other anymore verbally, that one of the parties turned on me. And it was the party who was, in my opinion, in the role of abusing their authority. In my opinion, I was seeing them that way. And I asked the cards, and they agreed that that is true, what they were doing. But they're convinced of it, right? Like, they're convinced of their rightness to do what they were doing. And so when that person turned on me, you know, I dished it back, and I stood in my own authority. But in actuality, what that meditation, you know, what that reading, that first part 1 that I published showed was like that, you know, the highest version of me would want to kind of remove myself from this and not get involved, not play referee, and not also like dish it back to anyone who tries to turn it on me. Because that's the highest road, right, for me. And just holding space for them to find their way out of whatever difficulties they find themselves in, because they are there out of their own energy being activated. And holding space and being present, right, witnessing what they're doing is the most powerful thing I could do. But I wasn't able to do that because I had felt powerless for that moment, and it was because I was in the face of someone that I perceived as abusing their authority. So you see how that wound that I had from earlier on in my life, feeling powerless to those who abused their authority, was reactivated in me, and I did not even know it. I didn't even know it the whole time, and even until doing the meditation after that first recording, I still did not know that that was active in me because I couldn't let myself see it. So that's how these things function. It's really kind of interesting and cool and nothing to be ashamed of, right? This is human nature. And if you can be brave enough to go in, be humble, love yourself. Everything is lovable. Every mistake, I'm allowed to make mistakes. I'm allowed to mess up. I'm allowed to live out the energy that I've lodged in me if that's what needs to happen in order for me to see it. This is just how it is. Ideally, no one gets hurt when that happens, Unfortunately, in this case, probably feelings were hurt, but I think that the feelings were already hurt, you know what I mean? That's why everyone was activated, because feelings were already hurt. So I didn't make that any better with my contribution to this situation. But I could have, if I had not been wounded in the same way, and if it wasn't like this soul contract ordeal where we all get activated. But I was not even aware of being activated, like I said. So that is my new assessment of the situation from the vantage point that I now have. And I think it's kind of cool that I get to share this whole nitty-gritty process with anyone who's really serious about knowing what it's like. Because, I can sit here and talk and say, do this, 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 and this. And it might sound like I make it look easy, but some of them aren't easy. Some of them are easy, but some of them are not easy. Some of them we don't want to see this part of ourselves, Like I didn't notice that I had a grudge against people who were abusing their authority because I still felt powerless to change it, I'm not going to be able to control them, But now I see that my presence would be more powerful than even their abuse. Because I know that when you're open-hearted and you stand in the face of somebody else, whatever they're doing, they're either going to open their heart to or run away. So presence is the most powerful thing. Love, it is who we are, and it is the most powerful thing. So now I understand, but my programming and my consciousness had orchestrated this whole thing, this judgment, and putting it in my shadow, and holding a grudge against those people and not trusting those people and being defensive towards those people, which was designed to keep me safe from those people, right? But inadvertently also created a situation where I was always attracting those situations. And if I wasn't attracting it, I was seeing it happen between my loved ones or happen on, a social media feed or whatever, where there was abuse of power, and I wouldn't like it. And normally how I would handle it if I saw it on social media was just look away. And with my family, it was like doing that thing where I wanted to take them through the steps of healing. And when it was these other people, it was like I hadn't learned that didn't work. I didn't notice that it didn't work. I just tried it again. I didn't do the thing that would actually solve it, which was solve the energy within myself. So that's what I've been doing. And it's a process, and I'm so glad to go through this process, and actually glad to share it with whomever happens upon it and finds themselves interested in what it's really like. It's worth it. It's worth it because, on the other side of this is that neutrality that I get to return to in myself. And I don't mind giving myself the time to process difficult emotions, Sometimes I can just pass through whatever it is, and I'm balanced. But this one is a more deep-seated one, and I know that it's because it's probably been carried over from other lifetimes where, I've been in other lifetimes where I was literally in war. This lifetime it happened where that energy showed up as like domestic violence in my home growing up. But in previous lifetimes, it was like I'm on a battlefield and people suck. It's scary and fuck you. And so those kind of grudges and fears and, heaviness was carried in for me to resolve in this lifetime. And so in this lifetime, it had to be recreated in my life. War had to be recreated in my life. And it's like, it was recreated. I grew up in war. What I mean by that is like a household where it wasn't safe, where people were turning on each other, where there were weapons, where people were getting hurt and bloody and blood-curdling screams a lot, and things were broken, and it was fucking scary. It was very scary. But also survivable, and like when I say God gives us what we need, God gave me that because I needed it. Because I needed to resolve the clogged up energy I was holding on to on my soul level. And my soul came in to resolve it in this lifetime. My soul said, okay, I know we can get through this. And I was built this way, right? I was built in such a way where I can get through it. And not everyone has to go through that, right? That's not everyone's soul lesson. But that was mine. I've been, here on Earth for a long time. A lot of times. And back then, things were done a little different. And there was no fair relating. Not on this planet earlier on, anyway. When we brought Christ consciousness here, it was a miracle and a beautiful thing, and it was quite an accomplishment. So that's that. Part 5 leaves us to let myself process some more anger and more whatevers to get to the other side and to build this rainbow bridge for myself on reprioritizing my role in the face of war.